Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Welcome to
Hi.
a special live discussion for Literarily Wasted. We are talking about Blade Runner, the movie. We all read Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, which is the book that the movie is based on. And then we finally watched Blade Runner, what is the final cut on Netflix, was the one that was recommended to us. So now we're going to talk about it. So welcome Friday night during quarantine. That's why we are in different places, not at Second and Charles. We are at our houses. You can hear the beautiful soundtrack of our dog eating in the background. And
Hi, Nicole. Hi,
we've got,
Jeff. Hi, Scott. Hi,
hi
Matt.
everybody. We've got all your
Hi,
comments
Amber.
coming in through say Hey Gene on YouTube. So of course, that's going to happen immediately when we start. So just bear with us. Our dogs like to bark at like nothing when people slam the doors outside or like
or
a leaf
walk
blows.
in front of our house.
Yeah, they walk in front of the house.
Drive
or
in front of our
just
house.
think about being in front of our house. Nicole's a big fan of your bird picture.
Yeah, thank you.
Just exist.
So
Can you turn that off,
yeah.
please? Thank you.
Hold on. Hey, Adam, go to your camera shot. I gotta go turn
we don't want
something
anybody
down.
to see Lucas not in his spot. So
That's right.
here's us. So hey, who's here? Hello, hey Amber. Let's see, Melissa's here. Jean loves the dogs. Hey Jeff, Scott's here. Scott's our like Blade Runner expert, so we'll be counting on you to help us through this because this was an interesting movie.
Well, to start, Adam, you and Lucas had already seen this,
Yes.
and me and Talia had not.
True.
So,
So we can talk about it from. I think we should talk about it from your perspective first, as first-time viewers, and then and then me and Lucas can talk about what we thought about it on a repeat viewing. How does that sound?
sounds.
I think that
All
sounds
right.
great.
Well, let's get so.
Okay.
Christy, you start. Tell us what you thought of the movie.
I really liked the way everything looked. And there were some added stuff, like not from the book, that I really appreciated. And some stuff that they left out that I thought would have been helpful just for like understanding the world. I was really bored for most of it. Up until Roy Batty loses his mind and starts like going crazy.
You're talking about like at the very end.
Yes. Yeah. But it was really pretty. And again, like there were some things that I thought it did really well and some things that I didn't appreciate. But also, like, I cannot imagine reading this or watching this movie having not already read the book. Because the movie, I felt like, didn't bother explaining anything. And, like, even less than the book did.
Yeah.
So, like, I can't imagine having watched it without having read it. I feel like they're good companion pieces, maybe.
Okay. Talia, first-time viewer, what did you think? Overall impressions.
I thought that the movie was beautiful. All of the model work, the cinematography, the lighting, everything was incredible and unique and just so interesting to look at, which was good because it was the only interesting thing about it.
Wow.
I too was very bored. I was also incredibly confused. So I can't imagine how confused someone who had not read the book would be watching this movie. I still feel like there was a bunch of stuff that I had no clue what they were talking about or what was happening. But it was pretty, and that part was cool. I read in some trivia that the original cut was over 4 hours long, and dear God, why? Like, as it is, I think if they had took out a bunch of the dramatic looks and pauses, this movie would have been about 45 minutes shorter.
Okay. Scott says in the comments that he watched the movie for almost 10 years before reading the book. Gene says he watched the movie years ago and it was really confusing.
Did it take you 10 years to understand what was happening in the movie?
So as a second time viewer, hey, Lucas Pepke in the comments.
I am. Oh, hey,
So
Lucas.
this is my second time to watch it, and I watched it for the first time like by myself when I was living in New Orleans. I just bought the DVD on a whim, and when I watched it, I was bored. I was like, wow, this movie's really boring, and it was a little confusing, and I tried to read probably too much into it at the time, but now having read the book and then revisiting the movie, I actually had like a much greater appreciation for the movie. Linda, on Facebook says the book and the movie are very different. I love the movie. This is a film you need to see more than once to get the full impact. And I agree. Watching it the second time, like I appreciated it so much more. I actually liked it this time. Like the first time, I didn't really like it, but now, like, and you know, I was going into it thinking like this is going to be completely different from the book, but there was actually a whole lot more similar than I thought. Now there are still a lot of differences and a lot of things that the book has that the movie doesn't, like the Mercerism and Buster friendly, and you know the emphasis on animals and things like that, and his relationship with Rachel, blah blah blah, but which we can get into. But as a second time viewer, I really liked it. Trish says, I'm sorry I'm not going to watch tonight. Binge watching Lord of the Rings tonight with my husband. Is a true geek. Can I take a break right now? Hey.
Nice. You have fun, Trish.
Enjoy.
That sounds like an awesome night.
But yeah, so that's my...
Nicole says it took her 3 days to watch the movie because she kept getting so bored she couldn't concentrate.
Yeah, it's...
Well, and Scott did reiterate what Linda said, that you get rewarded multiple watches,
Okay,
which
but
I
here's
could
the
see
thing,
that.
like I can totally understand that. Yes, there's probably so much to be gleaned from a second watch, but I don't want to watch it for a second time.
Sorry, everybody.
Okay.
Dogs.
Puppy.
You're horrible, Adam.
It's Bailey. Sorry, what were you saying?
Sorry, I have this weird thing where if dogs bark, they must bark.
So I will say for me, I fell asleep. That's not saying anything, but
yeah, because you fall asleep in every movie.
I do fall
so it
asleep
really
in about
doesn't
every
do
movie.
anything.
It's just because I get comfortable, my mind gets at ease, and I just rest.
That
So
must be nice.
I have seen this multiple times in the past, and it did make more sense this time, but then I was way more confused at some of the choices that Ridley Scott made as well. But I will say this to back up what everyone says is, and I think I said this in our live discussion, is it is a visual feast. I was watching it and I was blown away. I don't think I've ever really paid attention to one movie where every single shot was just perfect. Like the lighting, the the setup, probably not representing this in correct film terms, Adam, but just everything was such a treat to look at, and everything was interesting. So to me, he did not waste a single shot, and I don't think I've ever really thought that about a film before. And it really did make me look at things a little differently, where I wanted to just pause every screen and see what was happening. And I'm blown away by the special effects. I mean, this was, what, 1984?
Yeah, the sets and the models were amazing.
Dude, yeah, the model work and everything.
I have
yes,
a thing about that because
Talia
Lucas has been going on about the model work. So there was an actor's strike during pre-production of this. So that gave the art department plenty of time to focus and develop the design of the movie. And apparently, because of that, pre-production lasted a full 9.5 months.
Oh, that must be nice to have.
They had more than 400 carpenters, painters, and plasterers working on the sets 18 hours a day, 7 days a week for 5.5 months.
Wow. That's crazy. I mean, but it shows,
They
like,
built a tiny little city.
like when you watch this film, I will say even more so than Star Wars, more so than Star Wars.
Wow.
I think that every single shot, and the lighting and the effects are so incredible that it holds up in 2020 masterfully. I mean, that sounds way overkill, but I mean, I don't even know how they did some of the lighting effects and stuff that they did and the timing and but that being said, it's boring as shit.
Well,
I mean, but I did like it. Like if it weren't for the visuals, I would have been lost a lot more, and I was still confused.
the movie definitely
So yeah,
knows how to set a tone, and we can go on and on about the visuals. And Christy got up to go get a drink or something, and I paused it. She was like, "You don't have to pause it," and I was like, "Yes, I do." You have to see every frame of this movie because it's beautiful, and you can tell that they spent that much time on it because of all the details that they put into all the models and stuff.
Yeah, I told Luke the movie would be just as interesting on mute.
But
Yeah,
Jeff says
that's
the film
fair.
is certainly a slow burn for sure. If you struggle with this one, then I wish you luck when you watch 2001: A Space Odyssey. That's for sure. Let's not read that book, so we have to watch the movie.
I've actually never seen
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
He also says that the Millennium Falcon is in the film. It's a building. So if you want to rewatch, try to find that.
I did read that.
Oh, really?
I did read
Huh,
that. And
that's
the
interesting.
cityscape or the, yeah.
And I think the music is awesome. I mean, like you said, Adam, it really sets a tone. The music, the costumes, the props, like it's amazing. It's just I really question, like, after reading the book and seeing, like, one of the main things that really bothered me was the chicken head.
Isidore,
What's his name?
except he was something
Sebastian.
else.
Isidore.
Sebastian.
Yeah, like, yeah, and how they changed that completely, and how he's like this genetic. And Talia, I remember Talia
Oh my god!
when the second the like weird little like
When they showed the toys for the first time, I
And-
went, "What the crap is going on?"
So I felt
what
like
are those?
that was a real disservice to Isidore, because I know everybody really liked him in the book, and I felt like it really diminished that character on the screen. That was one of my major things that I think, coming away after seeing the movie, reading the book, and then coming back to the movie for the parts that I was awake through. That was something that kind of hit me, was the lack of Isidore, and definitely the weird 80s
Did not like the toys.
toys, the little people in
made.
I
costumes.
didn't
Yeah.
remember about that. I was like, what? What is that?
Yeah, it was real weird.
But I mean, we can talk about the differences between the movie and the book, but and all this like talking about appreciating the visuals, and you can watch it on mute and blah blah blah, which Jeff disagrees, and so do I. In that respect, it's not boring. If you appreciate like every frame of it, then there's something there for you. I mean, the plot, there's a lot of space. There's a lot of dead space. It's like watching Star Trek: The Motion Picture, where like it tried to be kind of it's 2001-esque. It tried to take its time, and it tried to take you on some sort of like philosophical space journey, and it spent like there were like 10 minutes. Kirk spent 10 minutes getting to the Enterprise. 10 real-time minutes. And like Blade Runner feels like that in places where you're just sort of slowly creeping up on things, and you're just like taking in the scenery. But watching it a second time, it really like transported me there. And so I appreciated the slow pace a lot more watching it a second time, because I wasn't like, I knew what to expect, and I wasn't waiting for the plot to happen, because I knew that it wasn't going to. But there is a lot of great dialogue in the movie.
Yeah, I agree, and it, like Jeff said, like you kind of have to earn that last monologue.
Oh yeah.
With Roy, but the payoff is there, and the lines are kind of few and far between, but they're
Well, apparently that monologue was way longer and super
really?
rambly, and Rutger Hauer didn't like it and chose the parts that he liked and cut the rest and just said what he wanted to, and then ad-libbed the last two lines completely.
Oh wow.
Yep.
Yeah.
which I appreciated because
And did we talk about Ridley Scott yet?
no, because I can't find it.
Leanne
Okay.
had to mute our live stream because the Roy's final monologue scene just played.
Oh,
It's worth it. It's worth it. And I had to tell Christy after. It was like, this is a famous monologue in the history of film. Like this is classic. But you know,
yeah, and Rutger Hauer edited it and rewrote it himself.
Linda Harrison says
He also has
the movie is deep in what it means to be human and prejudice against lesser humans, i.e., androids, Sebastians, those who don't have real animals. Jeff wants to talk about Edward James Olmos, not Edward James Almost.
Which I think everyone thought it was
Nope.
always almost.
Nope,
I thought
just
it was
you.
almost.
Just y'all. Hey, Ashley's in the
okay.
YouTube
What-
chat. How's it going?
Okay, so this'll hey, James is here too. This'll sound totally ignorant. Which one was he?
Which one was what?
Edward James.
Edgar James
He was
Almost.
the support guy that like drove him around and arrested him.
Yeah, the
and
guy
The
the
paper
guy
animal guy.
that
Yeah,
played
he made origami.
that played no part.
Yeah.
Like why was he even
I think
there?
his role was the paper animals
Isn't he kind of like the muscle for the police?
somehow.
He was like,
Yeah. But why even here's my question,
What
and I
was
was
the purpose of the little paper
I think it was
things?
the
they had to
yeah, they
incorporate
tied
animals
it back to
somehow.
the book, I think.
One of them was a man. He only made 3, and one
Oh,
of
he
them
did
wasn't
make a man
even,
with
one
a
of them
big,
wasn't
long-
even an animal.
Big long anatomic paper.
And it wasn't even. No,
Yeah,
it wasn't.
Yeah, it was a stick man with a long
yeah,
old
he made like a
It was
matchstick
just a
man
stick
or
man.
something.
It was just a matchstick man.
Yeah, with a protruding protuberance.
An arm.
No, watch it again. It's got a
I don't want to watch it again.
okay.
Yeah.
So, but I was wondering. I was like, okay, this guy comes in, and I thought it was that guy, but I was like, why even have that guy, and why wouldn't Harrison Ford drive his own car? And I don't know. There are just a lot of choices where it's like, you know, he goes to the so Edgar James Olmos brings him into the police, you know, and he's like, we need you back. We need the old Blade Runner. You know, I gotta have you. And I'm like, oh, this is just already setting up so much different. And I really like the book more in that aspect where he was kind of the second tier, and he, you know, the main Blade Runner guy got waxed by. I think that was one of the first things that. Sorry,
Okay,
jumping
Lucas.
around. One of the first things.
Check out the theories
Yes.
that Scott and Jeff are throwing at us here, or
are
either
they
theories
throwing?
or confirmed.
Well, yeah.
You know, there's a question at the
Okay.
end: is Deckard a replicant? Scott says if you think that Deckard is a replicant, then Gaff, who's Edward James Olmos, is the backup to make sure he does his job. Jeff says Deckard was a replicant. Gaff is there to be sure Deckard doesn't go AWOL, which he ends up doing.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
So I have some fun trivia about that too. Ridley Scott apparently misled Harrison Ford and Rutger Hauer. They both agreed that Deckard was human and went into this with that mindset. And Ridley Scott said he agreed, and they went into it saying this is the importance of man versus machine. And then after everything was said and done,
Sorry, I'm watching it in the background because
after everything was said and done, Ridley Scott was like, no, he's a replicant. And Rutger Hauer and Harrison Ford were both very upset and annoyed and disagreed with that.
well, you know, does the movie leave that open to interpretation? Did you get that upon watching the movie?
Nope. But I mean, my attention had wandered by that point, so
Can we talk about Daryl Hannah's death? Why is she fidgeting like that? Okay.
Oh, yeah, I didn't
Why?
enjoy the
Okay.
flailing.
Daryl Hannah, 80s star. Why
Mermaid.
does she look like a clown? And
It was Nosferatu makeup.
that was a bad choice.
Hey, this is a
I
different
just
world.
watched that over my shoulder. Yeah, but oh man, I will say what a cool fight scene where she's got him, you know, headlocked in her legs, and she pulls his nostrils up.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
So
Oh,
another
was-
fun fact, sorry, I read all of the trivia. All of the gymnastics and stuff that she was doing, they obviously hired a gymnast to do all of those stunts and everything for her. But Ridley Scott made the gymnast rehearse it so many times that by the time it was time to film, the gymnast was too exhausted and couldn't do it. And they like last minute found a male gymnast and threw a wig on him and he did it.
Oh, really?
What a waste.
So on YouTube, Gene was asking. So Gene and Ashley are going back and forth on YouTube. So
Nice.
thanks, guys, for hopping in there. They're talking about 2049 and asking if it's better. And I have not seen 2049, so
haven't either.
I have heard
It's
it's
also
very
on
good, and
Netflix,
I
isn't
know we own it, but
Oh.
I think it
Yeah,
might
let's-
be on Netflix. But I know Scott.
Let's get
Scott
back to
really
this
liked it.
conversation that we're having
Yeah.
on Facebook here too, because we're still talking about Deckard being a replicant. Jeff says, imagine if Deckard was only created right before the movie started and Gaff is Deckard's handler. Gaff's role is to show the audience that Deckard is a replicant. And Leanne says, I didn't see any eye shine in Deckard. Did I miss it? Scott says, yes. And it's in his apartment when he's behind Rachel. I got to go back and watch this.
Yeah,
now,
I missed that.
Because I didn't even know anything about like eye shine. There are scenes of replicants where light reflects in their eyes in a strange way. It happens once briefly to Deckard. Gaff's unicorn is also a tell because why would he make a unicorn if he didn't know all about Deckard's memories? We did have that. We did get that like flash frame of or like that sequence where Deckard was like thinking about unicorns, and I was like, I got my books confused.
Yeah, that was my only connection that I got is I saw that part
His-
and I was
his
like, I see what
unicorn
they're trying
dream.
to do, but
I got my books confused when that unicorn thing was happening.
no, me too. I was like, I don't remember this.
But so like Deckard being a replicant, like apparently there's all these little things that does reward you on a repeat viewing, which if it's intentional, which I'm sure it was, that's brilliant.
Yeah. My only thing there is you have to take such a deep dive into it and know so much about the world and everything else to even get that. Like after seeing the movie, reading the book, watching the movie again, I think I'd need like 2 or 3 more times. So that's 10 hours of my week.
Well, let's talk about, let's just get into sort of the story and the differences between Blade Runner and Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep.
Well, one of my favorite differences was that Roy Batty has the storyline of that he's about to expire naturally. I guess his 4 years are about to be up, and
Yeah.
he's trying to figure out a way to stall it. And I loved having that as part of his story and to explain why some of this was happening.
I did that. That made sense to
There's
me.
motivation,
Like it was,
right?
yeah. Like
In a way, I would say that the replicant's story is more interesting than Deckard's, because it
In the
seemed like
movie?
there was so much more at stake for them. Yeah, in the movie,
yeah, him. He's just doing a job. He
Deckard's
didn't
hunting them
care.
down, but they're trying to live, and they sort of gruesomely murdered his creator. But
I didn't even feel like I had any emotional like distress in Deckard. Like I didn't see that turmoil in him. So yeah, for sure, I cared way more about Roy Batty's character because even though he went banana pants, like at
He
least
offered
there
more.
was a reason. There was something that they were fighting for. These replicants were trying to extend their lives, and I love Harrison Ford, but I didn't care about him that much in this movie.
look at what
That's fair.
Also, after their romantic scene, I didn't like him at all.
it was a little rapey.
Yeah, it was very uncomfortable.
Amber says, I found it weird how so much was different from the book. No religions, no empathy box, no mood organ, crowded city. But the tone was so similar to her. The dialogue felt just as awkward and sudden to me, interspersed with you are here world building. The pacing also felt similar. That's interesting.
You mean it was slow? I totally agree with like everything she's saying though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I can't imagine what the movie would have been like with the religions and the empathy box and trying to explain all that stuff away.
It would have.
That was the 4-hour version.
Yeah, it would have been like smushing Dune in with
Oh, no.
Blade Runner, and it would have been like a fever dream. Like I don't know, but I think that was my struggle. Having seen the movie a long time ago, a couple times. I think this is my 3rd viewing, and then reading the book, I was so confused by all the empathy box and the religious aspects and the Buster Friendly. Like it was hard for me to grasp even like what this empathy box was.
Yeah.
So-
Well, I think the thing that I really missed was the fact that the radiation was killing I guess, the world, and there was
Yeah.
a reason to be going off Earth. Like, they didn't even touch
Yeah.
on it.
Yeah,
Yeah, the only thing I saw there was that like
Yeah.
blimp scene, where the blimp's kind of going across, and
Well,
you kind of hear the voiceover, but the world feels so much more
It's so
alive here,
crowded.
right? Like,
well,
yeah,
Daryl Hannah did say that thing to Sebastian. I don't remember her, Chris, whatever. Said to Sebastian, she asked what was wrong with him, and he said he had like that glandular problem or whatever, and that's why he hasn't gone off world because of his health.
Hmm.
But that was like 2 seconds,
It's
and that was it.
so
I didn't
vague.
hear anything
Yeah.
else. Yeah.
yeah. But like Deckard. So you had Deckard and Rachel, and Rachel was different in the movie. She was not as manipulative.
She also
Oh,
didn't
not
know
at
she
all.
was an android.
She didn't know she was an android, like legitimately
Yeah.
didn't know. And then when she found out, that scene actually got me a little bit, like
That's a good
Where he-
scene.
Yeah.
That's a really
where he
good
tells
scene.
her that like all her memories are made up, and like it just like that's one place where I really appreciated the pacing because like you could just feel the pain.
Yeah.
Yeah,
She was a much more sympathetic character in this. And obviously, and then they left together in the end. So, like, she did not trick him and she did not push his good off a building.
Talia was. Talia's like, wait, he's not married? I was like, no, not in
No.
this one. So that does change a lot of the dynamics there with him and Rachel. Tyrell, right? She's not Rosen. It's not the Rosen
Right.
Corporation. That's Tyrell.
Oh, yeah.
Which I don't. I think the Tyrell character in this is way cool. Like all the Tyrell scenes are awesome in the building, and that plays a huge part in Ready Player One. If you haven't read Ready Player One, but yeah, I don't know where I was going with that.
But
Sorry.
But apparently,
Rachel
Uh-huh.
as a plot device, as like somebody who comes in and sort of changes Deckard's paradigm, I guess. Is she the one that does that? Because in the book, she was sort of the climax of his empathetic
Boo.
change towards
sorry.
empathetic change towards androids. Did you get that in the movie that she was the one that sort of pushed him over the edge?
She was the only one. Like, at
See,
least in the book, like, he had some feelings towards Lubaloof, too.
But, like, I didn't ever feel. I don't know. Because, once again, I didn't feel like there was that emotional turmoil of him. I honestly. He didn't seem super thrilled anytime he had to kill someone. It was him always being like, watching them die. Like,
He
so,
did get beat up a
I don't
lot,
know.
too.
He
every
did.
time.
He got the crap
He
beaten
didn't
out
even
of
kill
him
the
every
mustache
time.
man. Rachel did.
His poor face. You know what? I will say this is weird. One of my favorite shots that I just thought was very interesting to look at is when after he's gotten his face beaten for maybe the second or third time, I don't remember, and they're back in his place and he's drinking like a shot of clear liquor.
Yeah.
And he takes that little sip and you see the blood from his mouth
Oh, yeah,
swirl
I
back
noticed
through
that.
the
Yeah, that was
liquor.
gross.
I was like, that was really cool. It was gross, but it was a cool
No,
shot.
it's masterfully shot.
Not enough for me to love the whole movie, but what else?
Hey, YouTube people, we're looking at your comments too.
Gene, hi,
Gene, we
Giggleman.
can show. We'll adopt you. You can come play some arcade games.
I'm not right.
Not right now. I mean,
I'm
yeah.
not this
But
week.
we may stream something here later. Anyway, aside.
Okay, so other devices in the movie. Jeff is talking about Roy going. We've all mentioned like when Roy goes nuts at the end, and Jeff is saying that I don't believe that Roy goes nuts, and I'm gonna side with Jeff here. I don't think he just goes crazy to go crazy. I think that like.
Oh no, he's realized he's dying. This is the end of his life.
And
Sorry,
and
excuse me.
he ended up saving Deckard at the end. As a way to like
true.
sort of break that. Like he was beating the crap out of him. And like
Yeah, he could have just let him fall.
Oh man,
But he didn't. You're watching the
Yeah,
movie
no,
right
but it's
now?
it's such a cool scene. Like Roy's standing, so
Oh, we're
Deckard's
right at that
hanging
part.
on, by a limb, and like the shot of Roy coming out with the fan spinning and the smoke, like it's so cool. I will say, the the book does a way more gratifying culmination. I mean, the movie does than the
Oh yeah, for sure.
book, because the book just felt like, okay, he went in and took care of him, in the end.
So
Okay.
some fun trivia about that scene, though. Two of Rutger Hauer's stunt doubles both got injured trying to make the jump. And so Rutger Hauer said, "Can we just tighten it up a little bit?" And then he tried it himself and nailed it.
Did
Oh, wow.
So
did
basically,
Ridley
Rutger
Scott
Hauer
direct this
was like,
movie, or did Rutger Hauer direct this movie?
well, so maybe it would have been better. Maybe I would have liked it better if Rutger had directed the entire movie.
But I mean, talk about like, stealing the show.
Yeah.
Roy
Well, for
Batty
sure. So it's fair. He has a yacht named Blade Runner, by the way.
Had.
Rutger
Had?
Hauer's dead.
Oh,
Man.
I mean, well, I'm very sad.
Oh,
Well, thanks, folks. Thanks for tuning in tonight.
but the ending scene, the climax, I guess, between first Deckard and Daryl Hannah's character Pris, and then the fight scene with Roy is just, there were so many things that were painful to watch that,
Oh, the nail through the hand and stuff like that. Yeah.
I
but
don't like it.
but like I think that it's moments like those that you can watch, you can like sort of cringe and recoil because of what he's doing, but you can also like, it also makes you really like feel for him. Like I had more sympathy for him even while he was beating the crap out of Deckard than I did for Deckard.
I had so much more sympathy for all of the replicants in this movie than I did while reading the book, for sure.
Amber
Ridley Scott humanized
Amber says,
them.
when I was watching, I was it reminded of other book club books. The unicorns and the chest from Hardboiled Wonderland, and Roy at the end calling out to Deckard reminded me of the mage running up the stairs in Eyes of the Dragon. Yeah, like Flag.
Nice, yeah.
Everything,
Oh, yeah.
everything we pick is tied to itself. It's all.
It's
And
all.
you know what? We're not even doing it. You are. So you know what?
That's
You know, what kind of weird
Some-
Matrix
It's
simulation
a super
is that?
super
some
meta.
masterminding. But yeah, like, and the more we talk about it, the more I appreciate this movie. The setting. Let's talk about the setting. We kind of mentioned it already. In the book, it's this sort of radioactive wasteland, and the only people who aren't good enough to leave or stay on Earth. But here, it's like this neo noir science fictiony with a lot of like, Chinese and Japanese elements.
Yeah.
San Angeles.
Which one did y'all like? Which setting did y'all like better?
I mean, honestly, the other one felt very gray and vague and empty, just the way that it was described in the book. So the movie version felt much more compelling to me because they put so much work into it. You literally see all the detail and work that was put into it. Whereas I feel like there was not really too much focus put on that in the book. And what was mentioned was just that it was more wastelandy is kind of the feel that I got.
Now I cheated. I read the graphic novel, so
I didn't.
Yeah, I need to get that because I really would like to see that. Christy, what did you think?
I mean, the setting in the movie was more interesting and compelling, I guess. I think Talia used that word, but
Yeah.
I don't know. It depends. The book, it made sense because they were trying to get people off of Earth, and then in the movie they weren't doing that, or at least not as much. So I thought they both made sense for the story, the way that they set the story up.
Yeah, I agree.
the world of the book felt desolate. Like it, like you really
Yeah.
sense that like seeing another person is rare.
Yeah, they're evacuating Earth.
The movie, on the other hand, is like the exact opposite. Like almost like if you did like a supercut of Harrison Ford pushing his way through people, it would be comical to see. Like just him trying to go after, first of all, the Luba Luft character. I don't remember
The
what her name
snake.
was. Yeah, the
Snake
snake lady.
charmer.
Yeah, the snake charmer.
Luba Luft character, and then like running after Rachel. Like it's just like he's constantly pushing his way through people.
And they're always going the opposite direction of him.
Yeah, he's the only one going that way. But
That's true.
so
Ashley on YouTube says that she likes the Tokyo City look to the film, which I definitely agree. That's where the book felt really weird. It feels gray. It feels desolate. Like, yeah, people are rare and there's just not a lot going on. And plus, I remember Talia watching the opening credits and she was like, "Oh, that's too many people." Because I mean, there's really only a handful of characters in the book that are even ever mentioned.
Oh yeah, when they were just listing the actors,
Yeah.
and I was like, oh, we've already passed our limit.
yeah, and this is, I guess we can have this conversation. I don't know how much we can talk about it now, but like the sort of Japanese / Chinese influences in the production design of this movie. There's actually a lot of science fiction that uses that, like Firefly, for instance, as like a very strong, like Chinese, I want to say, like influence.
Yeah.
Why is that? Why like use that very particular like sort of futuristic? Like what does that contribute? Because I know like for us, and Christy can probably speak to it better than any of us because she's been there. But like going to Japan and like going to Tokyo is like going to another world.
Yeah, it's really culturally different. Like everything looks and feels different.
I mean, do you think that's just, most of the films and everything is just a Western culture versus Eastern culture, so that feels
Well,
foreign,
Ridley Scott's
but
not American, but
well, right? But I mean, but he's still, where's he from? Where's he from?
Where's who from?
I don't know. Ridley Scott. Anyway, but I mean, it
UK? Canada?
feels
I don't know. He's not American.
it's exotic, but still understandable, if that's maybe a way to put it.
I've always wondered if it's something also just because we forget how young our country is.
Yeah.
Like so young, and Asia is so old and ancient, and maybe there's something timeless about that. Like that will continue through history kind of
But also
thing.
sort of
Yeah.
the like over embrace of technology, and sort of how far ahead.
He's English.
Yeah.
She's English. Thank you, Scott. Of
Scott
course,
says
Scott.
the two
knows.
superpowers and population centers. Ashley K on YouTube says, I follow Chris Broad on Instagram. He takes pictures of Tokyo, and it literally looks like it's straight out of the movie. But like for me,
Yeah.
it does like the sort of like Tokyo-esque Times Square-ness of like the giant Coca-Cola, and like Jeff mentioned the big Atari logo, which is awesome.
Yeah.
There's also a big Pan Am logo.
The bad
There's
Pan
so
Am
much
in there.
sponsorship in this, like, or like product placement or whatever, logo placement. But I don't know. Like there was not much of that in the graphic novel. Like they of course creating visuals for a graphic novel, you take some liberties. But in the graphic novel, it was basically just like a wasteland. It kind of like some of the establishing shots, they had that sort of the like triangular trapezoidal structure that was featured so prominently. I guess that was the Tyrell building. But yeah, I appreciated the world building of the movie. Ian Silva says, I had a funny moment while we were watching where Harrison Ford had what looked like a smartphone. My wife didn't bat an eye until I pointed it out. She didn't notice since we're so used to them everywhere now. And then Jeff says, speaking of technology, isn't it interesting to see what we thought technology would be like in the future back in the early 80s? Like, this was
Yeah.
2019, wasn't
Yeah.
it?
2019. Yeah, it's November 2019
Well, the
when it
technology,
starts.
but also the fashion. I always love seeing what
Yeah.
that looks like.
Oh yeah, and in the graphic novel, he wore like the same sort of coat, like with the big collar.
I'm
Yeah,
thinking
that's
more of
awesome.
the snake
Okay.
charmer with her like plastic
Oh,
coat.
Oh right.
oh, I loved Rachel's
Oh,
wardrobe
yeah.
though. I wanted
No,
all those coats
Rachel's.
for sure.
I will say it was a really great choice for that plastic coat.
For the, they did that because
Oh,
of
they
the
did that
blood.
because of the blood, but it
For
was
sure.
such a great use of the costume to show, because that's the first replicant that we see.
Also, they just wanted to show boob.
Oh, and they did.
They wanted. I
I
mean, it's
noticed.
80s. You have to show boobs.
Oh, did you? Speaking of boobs, so a difference between this and the book, Deckard only killed the women in this movie.
Oh.
He did not kill any of the men. Leon was
By
shot through the
Rachel.
head by Rachel, and then Roy died because of his intertermination date. I wonder if that has anything to do with the fact that the other trivia I read said that Ridley Scott did not read the book. Which
That's a problem to me. Why wouldn't you?
I think that
yeah, I feel like that's part of your
the
job.
Lugaloof character could have crashed through maybe one more pane of glass.
Oh, it was not
Yes.
Luba Luft. That was made clear that they like eliminated her. She was meant to be someone totally
Yeah,
different.
but come on,
I
she's a
felt that
performer.
She's still the
similarity
Lugaloof
as well.
character.
But yeah, the director did not read
there
this
were-
book.
But there
which
were so many nods to the book. Like,
Well, the screenwriter hopefully did, but the director didn't.
Yeah, like they got it straight, like the Voight-Kampff test, like they got that straight out of the book, and like there was actually a lot of stuff that was pulled out of the book, and that's why I was surprised. Like I was even surprised that like the Isidore character was in there to some extent, because I didn't remember that being a thing from the first time. I guess I didn't remember a lot about watching it. Maybe I was just bored out of my mind when I first watched it.
I didn't remember the little weird friends. That was definitely like, oh, it felt like your typical 80s sci-fi movie when the little friends came in, because it's like, of course we have to put some sort of little people, whether it's like, Ewoks.
I'm not sure they were
or
trying to sell
Wicket
merch though from Blade Runner. I don't know how many people went out bought
Yeah.
the Blade Runner toys.
Oh yeah, blister pack.
Anything about this movie?
I would totally buy a Blade Runner toy now.
I would
that
buy-
you
I would
mentioned
get
that.
I would get his gun replica because that was awesome.
The gunler. Yeah, the
Well, that
gun.
was based on a real guy.
Hey, y'all should cosplay as Rachel and Deckard.
You got to do something with your hair, make it all like.
I need like a dress that has like shoulders that are like this big.
And I'll be the snakeskin lady, and Talia, who do you
No.
want to be? Dude, that would be an awesome deep cut if you were at Dragon Con and you saw some dude in a snakeskin lady costume.
By the way, Snakeskin Lady, her name was Joanna Cassidy. She was so at ease with that Burmese python around her neck because that was her real
Yeah.
pet. That's
Oh.
her pet
That's
snake,
cool.
and the snake's name is Darling.
Aw,
And so
how
that was really cute.
adorable.
Cute. Rest in
So
peace,
Scott
darling.
says that Hampton Fancher had to use Ray Bradbury to get Philip K. Dick's number to get his permission to adapt it. That sounds like a whole bunch of connecting flights to get to that point.
Yeah.
Leanne says, I really, really wanted Decker to look at or pet a sheep when he was in the animal shop.
Yeah.
That would have been a
Yeah.
good tie-in.
Wow.
I mean, they hinted at animals, but it
Yeah. Well,
but
there's
it was
like
so
even,
subtle.
Even with the snake, he asked Zora
Is it a
if
real
it was real,
yeah.
and she said, "Do you think I'd be working here if it was?" Which
Yeah.
implied she would have had a lot of
and
money.
the owl. I mean, all
Mm-hmm.
they said with the owl was the owl's there and it flies, right?
Well,
And it's
he
not real.
asked,
And
"Is it real?" And
Yeah.
she said, "Of course not." So I
Right.
mean, there were like
There were a
those
couple
little
nods.
nods. in
What,
there.
Scott?
and I guess
You with the trivia. He says Joanna Cassidy did reshoots for the final cut 25 years later.
Oh yeah.
what?
So what they did was there was a stunt double who was crashing through all the glass. They were having to shoot everything like hurried last minute, and the stunt double was just like a random person in a wig who didn't look, and they were just like running through the glass, and they did it in only a few takes. And so I think later, or they tried to like digitally put someone else's face, tried to put her face on it. Anyways, it probably did not look great. So they redid it later, and her costume still fit her and everything.
Are you
She went through.
serious?
She remembered her blocking. She
Dang,
still
girl.
looked amazing, and she.
If I had to
nailed it.
wear
25
if I had to wear
years
something I
later?
wore last year, I couldn't do it.
That is also applicable to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, I still fit. Speaking of, this is a John Carroll Catholic
Oh,
High
shut up.
School 2000,
Get outta here.
2001. Granted, I got the extra large, so it
Yeah.
still fits me, but
like,
yes, it still
I guess
fits.
the end of production, things started to get really, really rushed because they were super over budget. They were super over their time limit. They said the final scene was shot hours before the producers actually were due to take creative control away from Ridley Scott.
Wow.
There was like, they had
They're like, this, come on, this
They
is
had a-
dragging on, buddy.
a real hard time.
Well, and didn't you say, I don't know if you already said it, but you said Harrison Ford hated.
Oh yeah,
Working
he
with
didn't
them,
talk
right?
about this movie for a long time. Harrison Ford is not a fan.
Huh.
Not a fan of this movie, nor Ridley Scott.
Well, I mean, I don't know if it's just his character or if it's just Harrison. There are only certain times where I actually like am into Harrison Ford's acting. Other times, I just think he's like, he just mumbles and like.
Yeah, he's just
So,
like.
okay, so I read some about that too, and I think that was actually one of the things that frustrated Harrison is that he was given no direction. Ridley Scott was quoted as saying, "He's a professional actor. I shouldn't have to
Oh,
tell you what
no.
to do," and he focused solely on the shots and how everything was going to look, and he didn't give any acting direction, which is very frustrating for actors.
I get that.
Especially, and so Harrison would like ask for direction and said Ridley didn't care to talk to them at all and like ignored them.
Wow,
and
he was so
focusing
focused on the
solely-
visuals.
Yes, focused solely on the visuals
comes
and
across.
didn't give them direction at all. And most of what Harrison was supposed to have done, there was like a ton of recorded voiceover for this movie. There was supposed to be voiceover over the entire
That was
movie.
a studio mandated thing, right? Because they were like, this film is
Yeah,
confusing.
and then all of that got cut. So
Jeff Moore says, "Is Harrison Ford ever just a happy dude about anything?"
no.
No, haven't you seen the bisection of his face? He's happy on one side and he's angry on the other side.
I mean, she was watching Morning Glory yesterday.
Oh, he's a grumpy old man in
with
that.
Harrison Ford.
I haven't
and like
seen
there's
that.
there's a scene at the end. I won't spoil it for you, but he's like trying to like save the producer of the show from going somewhere else. So he does this very like uncharacteristic thing. But even throughout this thing where he's supposed to be like impressing people, he's on the news. She's trying to bullfight Bailey over here.
No, I'm just putting him to sleep.
He's like on the news and he's talking like you can barely hear him in the movie, much less if you were like actually watching this as a morning show or whatever. Like Harrison Ford, like I don't know, he's just weird. It's just weird.
He's a grumpy old dude.
Yeah.
Well, here, if you don't mind, I'm going to cycle through some trivia super quick. Some things actually from the author. Philip K. Dick personally approved of Rutger Hauer, describing him as, quote, the perfect baddie, cold, Aryan, flawless. After Philip K. Dick saw Harrison Ford as Deckard on set, he said, quote, he has been more Deckard than I had imagined. It has been incredible. Deckard exists. Also, fun
That's
fact,
cool.
the Voight-Kampff test comes from Cambridge mathematician Alan Turing's 1951 paper, in which he proposed a test called the Imitation Game, which actually comes into play. There's a movie, called The Imitation Game.
I want to watch that.
Which is about that.
Yeah.
So that's super cool.
Huh.
What else?
Linda says, according to Hauer, the filming was very tense. Ford didn't talk to anyone. Everyone was miserable. You can tell.
No.
You can
Yeah.
tell. Yeah.
This was not a super.
And you can
happy
tell,
movie.
to y'all's point that the shots are there. They're beautiful, but I saw a couple moments where I was like, not that they're phoning it in, but I mean, I guess it works because it's kind of a noir film. But yeah, you can tell sometimes when a production just doesn't all come together. And I guess I'm assuming this was kind of a mediocre reception at the box office. Do you know, Adam?
I don't, but I'm sure somebody in the comments does. But
yeah. If y'all know, let us know how this did at the box office at the time, because I could see it being a big flop.
that leads me to my next question, which is kind of a fascinating one. Why is this movie a classic? This movie is widely regarded as being like classic science fiction. Why?
Literally, the only thing that I can think of is the visuals, all of the art, everything that went into the actual art design of it.
I agree.
That is my.
I think it
the way
inspired
that
a
it
lot of
looks.
other. I mean, look, you had a lot of strong science fiction. I think for the time, this is. I mean, it still holds up today in my eyes, and I think like I see, like if you watch The Fifth Element right now, like you can see inspiration from The Fifth Element, from this film. Like a lot of the
I agree.
intricacy
There was
the
definitely I saw
intricacy of
stuff
his
that made me think
apartment
of Fifth
and like
Element.
the time that it took to carve out all those patterns on the walls and stuff, like you could see that in The Fifth Element and a lot of these other films. And I think that's really it, is the time and the attention of the shots, the music, the lighting makes it, if that weren't there, the story
So
falls
it's
apart.
so it's a
'Cause-
technical masterpiece, but surely there's got to be more than that. Like we're talking about. So in the comments, everyone's saying that like it was a box office failure. Hey Joe.
It was.
Joe
Well, it also
says
came out at
hey Joe.
it came out at the same time as E.T.
says
So
E.T.'s a good
Yeah.
popcorn flick. Joe says is a quote from Rotten Tomatoes. Misunderstood when it first hit theaters. The influence of Ridley Scott's mysterious neo-noir Blade Runner has deepened with time. A visually remarkable, achingly human sci-fi masterpiece. That's like so the visually remarkable we've covered. Achingly human
Yes.
sci-fi masterpiece.
Let's
That's
dissect
kind.
that. That's kind.
Jeff says, "Did you like the Battlestar Galactica reboot? Thank Blade Runner. I think you can thank 9/11 for the Battlestar Galactica reboot."
We're not talking about Battlestar
I-
Galactica.
I will say it does create a good narrative around, humans versus replicants, androids. But to a couple people's point, it's like you really have to watch it multiple times to get some of that. And for your everyday, if you put it in context with what was happening at the time, okay, you've got E.T. and you've got this. E.T. was a really stunning movie for the time too, with Spielberg.
So that's the
And
thing. People chose E.T. and then people heard, I think word of mouth started to spread about the pacing, specifically the
Yeah.
pacing of this movie, so people didn't want to go see it.
I see that too, because I can't watch E.T. because it was the first film I ever saw at a drive-in theater, and it scared me, and I cried, and E.T. got sick, and I was devastated, and I will never watch it again.
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert.
Because I'm going to let you know, I've actually never seen it.
I
I've
will
never
never
seen E.T.
watch
either.
it. I love E.T.
Don't kill me.
No, it's okay.
So-
It's just
So listen,
I-
so we're talking about Scott says definitely the Cylons in the reboot of Battlestar, but Blade Runner did not invent the concept of man versus machine and what makes obviously it was in the original novel, and obviously like Isaac Asimov did a whole lot of exploration on robots and robot and human coexistence. So Jeff says it's a film that takes sci-fi seriously. It lets you come to your own understanding of the film. Proves sci-fi can be adult. So maybe I think
with
we're
that, Jeff.
distilling, why Blade Runner is what it is like, serious sci-fi. Did it bring serious sci-fi to the mainstream? Is that where it came from? Is it more than just a popcorn flick?
I don't know. So if you're just joining us, I saw David hop in. Yes, we are talking about Blade Runner. We watched the, not the director.
The final
Said
cut.
we ruined E.T.
I
for
did ruin.
everyone.
I'm sorry, David. But we read the book "Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep" last month in our book club, and we watched the movie this week with our quarantine time, and we're kind of comparing and contrasting. So.
And a fun fact about the book, it was originally set in 1992, later editions brought that date forward to 2021. So I guess people wanted to move it into the future as, publications continued onwards.
Yeah.
And then the filmmakers set it in 2019 because they didn't want to do 2020 because of too many puns close to the perfect vision. But
well, here we are in 2020, everybody. Life's awesome.
Did you want to read that? Leanne says, Roy Batty shows us humanity in the end. Rachel is the most human character in this movie. I can see that.
Yeah, I totally agree.
And then she says, you've never seen E.T.? Listen, I've seen pieces of E.T. I know enough about E.T. It's like Titanic. I've also never seen Titanic. But I know everything about Titanic.
You've never seen Titanic?
Listen.
And what's the other ones?
Nobody got time for that.
Avatar. You haven't seen
Avatar. He's never seen Avatar.
You've never seen
Listen,
Avatar?
Apparently James Cameron movies, I don't get around to them. I've seen Terminator 2.
Well, yeah. Dude, Avatar's solid. Like, yeah, it's Dances with Wolves with aliens, but it's great.
With Wolves.
It's fantastic. Take it for what it is and just enjoy it.
Author Philip K. Dick publicly denounced this movie after reading an early edition of the script. He mocked it, and then he was mailed a copy of... He wrote an article mocking it and mailed that to the production offices. Ultimately, he changed his opinion later, but I did hear that he only watched like the first 20 minutes of the movie and was like, that's good enough. This is fine.
See, Joe knows what I'm talking about. He says, why see E.T. when you can see Ghostbusters? Why see Titanic when you see Ghostbusters 2? You know what? Listen, I don't feel deprived. I don't feel deprived for all.
It's because you don't know what you're missing.
I have a challenge for you, Adam. During these times when we are not allowed to leave our homes anyways, maybe you could venture out and watch some of these movies.
Hey, we could all venture out because I'm guilty of watching The Office every night to fall asleep.
We can't venture out because we were planning on watching Ghostbusters tomorrow.
And there's a 24/7 James Bond channel on Pluto TV. I'm covered.
That only does 3 of the movies, and we've already seen them.
10 of them. So Dave is asking if we've seen all 3 versions. I have the theatrical cut. I've never seen the actual theatrical cut with the narration. I've only seen like the director's cut and the final cut.
Yeah, so we watched the final cut for this, the one that's on Netflix. We actually have the Blu-ray of the final cut, so we watched the Blu-ray. But I'd kind of be interested to watch the theatrical version now to see. Well, I just want to see. Well,
You can.
Okay, I would watch it. I will totally watch this movie again to get a little bit different perspective and try to get some of the details that y'all are kind of bringing up. That's a great thing about all of our discussions, whether it's a book or now a movie, is it always makes me want to dive a little bit deeper and discover a little bit more.
So, Gene?
I mean, to some degree.
Gene says we need to have these film things every week. Y'all want to start a film club? We can start watching movies.
Hey, we as long as we're in quarantine.
I think we should, next one we should do, We Have Always
Lived in a Castle. Yeah.
True.
We should do that. Speaking, I know we keep talking about Rutger Hauer's heavy influence on this movie. His very first day of filming was the scene where he murders Dr. Tyrell.
Goodness.
And the crew had created a fake head for him to use, a special effect head that cost $20,000 to make.
In 82.
And Hauer did not like it, had a hard time working with it, and asked if he could do the scene with the real actor. So they just put little tubes behind his glasses and in his ears to shoot the fake blood out of it. And he did it with the real actor, so they didn't even use the $20,000.
Okay, so somebody owns that prop head somewhere.
Google it. It's
in
on
this
eBay,
world,
I'm sure.
And it's probably a priceless thing. Well, hey, David says David and Leanne and Ian are all in for film club. I'm in for film club because guess what? I'm not going anywhere else on a Friday night.
I like the idea of tying it in and watching if there is a movie or something that's linked to a book.
To a book club, yeah.
So
Cinematically wasted.
Cinematically wasted. TM.
No, oh my God, stop! You can't do that.
I can. TM. It's ours.
No, you can't.
I'm finding it right now.
Also, this is one thing I told Christy and Adam earlier, but just a fun fact. In the very beginning of the movie, when we see Pris, Daryl Hannah, for the very first time, and she's hiding in the garbage and everything, when she pretends to run away and she slips and falls and like slams her arm through the vehicle window and breaks it, that was an accident. That was the first bit of trivia that I read, and I thought it was really interesting. She just slipped, and that was not breakaway glass. It was real glass. She chipped her elbow in 8 places and has a scar.
That's the gift that keeps on giving. It's like, oh yeah, I worked on Blade Runner.
See, proof. I got proof it was a Blade Runner.
Did you know that but as a cinema thing, that the T-Rex in Jurassic Park wasn't supposed to break the glass down in that scene?
Oh, it just
and
came down.
the kids weren't. It wasn't supposed to come down on them, so that was
Oh my
real
gosh.
reaction.
That's how you get the
just
best
another.
acting.
Yeah, that was actually great.
Yeah, another movie side.
Well, listen, we've hit the hour
ahead.
mark here.
We have.
This is a pretty good discussion about Blade Runner. You know,
Yeah.
I love doing this because it makes me feel
yeah.
like I appreciate it that much more. What were you gonna say?
I have one more thing that I want to bring up, if it's okay, and it's because it is about the book. So I will agree that Ridley Scott, he humanized the replicants so much in this movie, which made them so much more interesting. But the point of the book was to show that they are not humans. They are the villains, because when Philip K. Dick wrote this book, the androids were based off Nazis. It was based off all of the stuff that he had read about the lack of empathy that the Nazi the Nazi soldiers showed. And it was meant to dehumanize them. So I feel like that's taking them in completely different directions. And I thought that was super interesting about how the book was supposed to be super, they're not human. And the movie was, look at how we can humanize them.
All right. Well, Jeff says film club would be great. It's too bad we won't live, but then again, who does? Put that from the movie. Remember that Edward James
That's
Olmos?
from the movie.
Was that from
Yeah.
Edward James Olmos?
All right. Well, thank y'all for joining us. So listen, stay tuned. We're gonna talk more about doing this film club. We've got an Adventures in Reading coming up on Sunday. Lucas can talk more about that. And also, don't forget, we've got our hard-boiled Wonderland and the End of the World discussion coming up on Wednesday. It's going to look a lot like this because we're not going anywhere.
Yes.
We might be upstairs.
So Sunday night, 7:30, we're going to do our third book in its journey under the sea for Adventures in Reading. And if you haven't caught that yet, it is a choose-your-own-adventure journey called Adventures in Reading, and I read the book. Talia is my help with the comment section, and you guys get to choose our path. We gamify it, so we have a heart meter, and it's a lot of fun. I've really enjoyed doing it.
We go through it, we die as quick as we can.
And the cool thing is this time, Second and Charles is actually going to share that out. We got to figure out some of the technicalities, but yeah. And this is not the actual card, but just a heads up for Literarily Wasted, our hard-boiled Wonderland and the End of the World discussion. We're tweaking to the times.
Oh, I'm going to post about that later.
Are you gonna? Well, we can sneak peek it right here, don't you think?
Yeah, if you don't mind me taking it over.
Here, I'll hold it up. Well,
no,
you
that's
do
fine. No.
Okay.
Instead of our normal mostly mystery box, because we're, like I said, not leaving our homes, we're practicing social distancing, and to make sure that everyone else stays as safe as possible too, Books A Million has very kindly donated an electronic gift card as our mostly mystery box this month, and that will be a digital code that we will send to the winner that can be used to shop online, including Second and Charles posts all of their rare and collectibles online. It's a portion of the Books A Million website, but they do post that stuff on there. So they have very kindly donated an electronic gift card for $100 so that you can go shop online. So join us for that live discussion for your chance to win, and I'll make a little graphic and post that up over this weekend so that we can share that out with all of our friends.
And you know, while we're in quarantine, I mentioned this to Christy, and I'll mention, maybe we'll just do like a live hangout with the Lit fam. Like it's not a discussion about anything.
Yeah.
We'll just go
Chit chat.
live and like happy hour it or something like.
We'll just talk about Ghostbusters.
Talk about
the
Ghostbusters
whole
all the time. Film club,
Yeah.
right? But
I'd love to know like what everyone else is like consuming media wise, and just have a chat
I
about
thought you meant
that. Like,
food-wise, and I was
no,
like,
well
I
that
ate a
too.
whole
Hey,
pie.
what are you eating, and what are you eating with your video games,
With your
books,
brain.
movies,
What is your
music?
brain eating?
Yeah, what's your brain eating?
yeah, we'd just maybe Lit fam happy hours are going to be a thing soon. So.
I'm digging that.
So anyway, thanks for tuning in and hanging out with us on a Friday night during quarantine. Stay safe, and we
Yes.
will see you next time.
Wash
All right.
your hands. Don't touch your face.
Thinking about all you guys. Appreciate
Bye.
you.
Bye.